You know what it is, Friday, December 30th. Give us this day our daily bread. Welcome to Daily Bets. I am the Spittin Statistician Dane Martinez. With me, as usual on Fridays, is my man Benny Ricciardi in our final show of 2022. Benny, how you ringing in the new year? You're actually going to toast, or you actually going to stay up past midnight or past like 12:10 a.m., should I ask?
Well, the plan right now for the Ricciardi family, at least, is we're supposed to be going to a party in town for another set of parents who
Sure.
have children that are the age of my children. So it's like a parents and children party
Okay.
where the parents will probably be upstairs hanging out, having some adult beverages and
Sure.
enjoying whatever. And the kids will probably be downstairs in this guy's house. He has like this big basement room with TVs and
Right.
old video game systems and all that stuff. So the kids will be down there hanging out. So will I stay up till midnight? Really depends on whether or not the kids are still up to midnight. Because if the kids need to go home, then unfortunately daddy's got to take the kids home at some point. But if the kids are able to last until midnight or around midnight, then yes, I will still be awake at midnight. So
Fair enough.
We'll see what happens.
I'm a new father as well. It's be my first New Year's, as a father. And I got to ask you, you mentioned adult beverages, right? Like, what's the threshold? When do you let your child have an adult beverage to cheers in the new year? I put the over-under at, for you and the Ricciardi family, I put the over-under at 7.5 years.
That's a little bit higher than that. Like, one thing I always tell my kids is like, listen, when you turn 21, I will be the one next to you on the flight out to Las Vegas so we can celebrate your 21st birthday in style and all that. But up until, I mean, listen, I went to college. You went to college. Like, I'm not going to pretend that my kids are not going to be drinking in college. And I want to make sure that they know how to drink when they get to college.
Yes.
So, I mean, for me,
that is key.
It's probably like senior year in high school. I will allow him to, if we're hanging out watching the football game and I know he's not going anywhere for the rest of the day.
Okay.
I may allow him to start having beers around that time. It's around when I started drinking, right? Like sophomore,
yeah,
junior,
I just meant like the
school,
special little one drink on New Year's Eve, a little toast at midnight.
He's already done. Yeah, the champagne.
That's
thing,
what I said to 7.5 years old. I think for him to I don't think it was pound one back.
No, I don't think it was that young. I want to say it was like maybe 12, but it was also in the middle of a pandemic, and we all thought we were gonna die. So
fair enough. You would appreciate this. I had my first sip of alcohol ever in section 305 of the Meadowlands, my friend.
Nice.
Watching the Jets and the Dolphins in a 51-45 overtime thriller where Dan Marino and Kenny O'Brien combined for 900 yards. But that's
was that the fake spike game?
Yeah, no. Well before that, it was Wesley Walker who caught the game-winning touchdown all the way.
I remember Wesley Walker.
Yeah,
and Al Toon back in the day is my boy.
Are you kidding me? Did you know Wesley Walker was actually blind in one eye and still like a Pro Bowl wide receiver? Absolutely crazy. But let's get into not, Christmas of the past, let's say, but the future right now. We've got week 17 on the horizon. We've got some props for you. Taylor and I yesterday, we were scrambling, bro. Okay, because as we were doing this show, we found out no Tony Pollard. Josh Dobbs was quarterbacking for Tennessee, and almost nobody was playing. And we're seeing a lot of the same things here, Benny, this week. A lot of the props aren't necessarily up, but we've been going through the numbers, trying to find you some nice bets that we like. Also got to remind you, subscribe on the YouTube channel, smash that like button. And before we get into our props, Benny, as usual for you, I've got a trivia question for you. I think you can handle this one, all right? So the New England Patriots, still in the playoff mix, right? As you know. And part of the reason they're still in the playoff mix is because of their ascending running back, Ramondre Stevenson, Benny's leapfrogged Harris, right? A great dynasty play or hold in fantasy. And did you know, Benny, that if he gets 56 more yards this season, in the Pats' final 2 games, he'll get over 1,000 yards, okay? And that would make him the first Patriots running back to have 1,000-yard season. Since who? Since when? Who was the last Patriots back to get 1,000 or more yards? It looks like Stevenson will get there this year, in 2 games if he gets 50 some odd yards. But who was the last Patriots back to get to that threshold? That is our trivia question today. And as usual, I'll give Benny guesses and we'll answer that towards the end of the show. But let's get into it. Benny, I think you got 3 or 4 props to give out. I've got 3. So we're going to try and get a little bit of extra cash as we go to 2023. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with the Carolina Panthers and their number 1 wide receiver, DJ Moore. So 3 of the last 4 games, DJ Moore's had at least 73 yards and a touchdown. His number here today is only 55.5 yards. Now, it is a tough matchup against Tampa Bay, but here's the thing I wanted to point out about this, right? You know, you look through Tampa Bay defense game logs, you're going to see a lot of 180 yards, 190 yards, 210 yards, you know, right around that 200-yard number. Very low number, below league average. They're a very good pass defense, right? So you might be saying to yourselves, well, then why the hell do you want to play DJ Moore? Well, here's why I want to play DJ Moore, right? The last 2 games, it's not like the Carolina Panthers, who fancy themselves a running team at this point in time, are throwing a lot of passes. So the last 2 games that they've played, you've gotten 24, 25 passes from Sam Darnold. And you still got that 73, 74, 83 yards coming from DJ Moore. So I'm saying to myself, all right, well, let's say this is a good pass defense, and let's say they limit them to 190 yards. Well, DJ Moore right now is basically seeing a 30% of the yardage target share coming from the Carolina Panthers offense. So even 190 yards, if you take 30% of that, you're looking at 57, which is over that 50.5. If Darnold falls behind and has to throw, if Darnold throws for 200 yards or more, and 30% of that is going to DJ Moore, you're talking at least 60 yards right there. That would be 55.5 we're looking at here. Like I said, the last couple games he's been playing very well. He is the number 1 receiver. He's been the number 1 receiver in this offense all year long. Yeah. Just at the beginning of the season, it didn't matter because their offense was so bad. Right. They weren't completing passes. They weren't, racking up any yardage. But, I mean, he was still the guy. Now he's the guy actually getting catchable balls thrown.
With a quarterback.
Yeah, with a decent – and again, I'm not saying – I'm a Jets fan. I've watched a lot of Sam Darnold football. I'm not saying Sam Darnold's a stud. But he's better than what they had with P.J. Walker and Baker Mayfield earlier in the year. And we're starting to see that production with DJ Moore. So I really like DJ Moore over 55.5 yards, even in a tough matchup against Tampa Bay.
I like that too. If you remember back earlier in the season when Baker Mayfield was under center for them, DJ Moore was talking to microphones put in front of him and being like, listen, these are NFL-sized windows. You got to let go of the ball. And Sam Darnold is at least doing that. So I agree with you. We're not like Jets trying to extol the virtues of Sam Darnold, but he does know how to find an NFL wide receiver. DJ Moore is that wide receiver number 1. And I like that play. For my first play, Benny, I'm also going to a wide receiver number 1 for a team to go over their receiving total. I'm going to our Jets wideout 1, Garrett Wilson, to go over 64.5 yards in a game that matters for both teams up in the Pacific Northwest against Seattle. All right, listen, the key for me here is that we go back to Mike effing White, Benny, and I think that's the real difference here. Mike White has 3 starts. In those 3 starts, Garrett Wilson has 30 targets, including a season-high 13 targets against Minnesota. He's gone over this number in 6 of his last 8 games, gone over this number in all 3 Mike White starts. The Seattle Seahawks give up the 5th most points in the league. I think this is going to be something of a back-and-forth game, and I think that, I think that Garrett Wilson will kind of reclaim his ability, just like you were talking about kind of in Carolina. Right now, with an improved quarterback who can actually throw, who will actually find him, you look for the boost for the wide receiver. I'm doing the same exact thing for the Jets' number 1 wideout as he goes from Zach Wilson to Mike White. I think it raises all boats, including Garrett Wilson's. And here's the other thing, and I want to ask you about this. Okay, Garrett Wilson so far in the season, 71 catches, 996 yards. Both of those lead the rookie class. Kenneth Walker on the other side of the field on Sunday leads the rookie class in rushing yards. My question for you, Benny, is if either one of them put up a big game this week, do you think that'll make them get some votes for Offensive Rookie of the Year? There's like Brock Purdy as well. There's like Christian Watson as well. Olave sniffing around. Dameon Pierce was sniffing around. I actually think the Offensive Rookie of the Year will be in Seattle on Sunday. I just don't know which one it is. What do you think? And do you think a big game from either Walker or Wilson could help solidify that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big game from both of them could help solidify their case, to be honest with you. I mean, we're looking at a situation now where, you could have a 1,000-yard receiver as a rookie, right? And if he's a 1,000-yard receiver, then that's got to be a guy who's going to be up there in the voting. The Jets have absolutely crushed the fan voting all year. The Jet fans have been, voting in a Jet every week as offensive or defensive player of the year. But they're legitimate too. I mean, Sauce Gardner is one of the best defensive players that we have out there. Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson are two of the best offensive rookies that we have in the NFL. Like, the future is bright. I'm happy. For the first time in a really long time as a Jets fan, I'm happy, I mean, I'm happy about other things in my life, but as a Jets fan, I'm actually happy for the first time in a really long time in my life. But, yeah, I mean, again, Olave had some really big moments throughout the year. Dameon Pierce had some really big moments throughout the year. Johan Dotson had some really big moments throughout the year. But a lot of these guys also kind of fell apart and went away and had some injury issues and things like that. If you get 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving, and you wind up anywhere near like 8 to 10 touchdowns, which is, depending on how Kenneth Walker finishes it out, is something that he could get into in that range. Yeah, it's going to have you up there towards the top. So I would love to see Wilson go out there and go like 7 for $120 and a touchdown or something like that. I think that would move him up there, assuming the Jets can slow down Walker and he doesn't go for like $140 on the ground and a couple of scores. But yeah, I kind of agree with you there. If there was a field bet versus guys playing in Seattle this weekend,
there you go.
I'd probably be on the guys on Seattle side of that one.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Christian Watson has come on late in Green Bay, and you have to give a little look to what Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy has done in San Francisco. But it's only like 4 games. I have seen him shooting up the odds board, but the play here is specifically because of Mike White being back under center, Garrett Wilson over 64.5 receiving yards against the Seahawks. You're going on an under on a receiver as well. I'm taking Garrett Wilson over. You're taking DJ Moore over. You're going on a receiver to go under their total at MetLife Stadium this Sunday.
Yeah, so again, we just talked about 2 guys who benefited from a quarterback change. Now I want to talk about a guy who I don't think benefits from a quarterback change.
It's true.
The Colts, Matt Ryan is a better quarterback than Nick Foles at this point in his career. And I love BDN and all the great things that he's done. But if you watch that game on Monday Night Football, it was a fucking disaster. Like, they were so bad on the offensive side of the
O-line,
And they're in a short week. They're on the road. They're an underdog. Like, there are just so many things that do not point to this. They're basically out of the playoff picture, whereas the Giants have something to play for. Like, there are so many things right here that just make me think this is one of those games where Indy is just going to come out and kind of roll over and just die. The Giants play slower games anyway. There's going to be a lot of running on both sides of this game, but neither one of these teams really wants to pass. So it's going to be like a slow, boring, like 17-14, 21-13 type football game. And I just really don't think there's going to be a lot of production. So the guy that I'm going under is going to be Michael Pittman. And listen, I love Michael Pittman. I think Michael Pittman is a super talented wide receiver. I think Michael Pittman has been super unlucky this year. The guy's got a ton of catches, has not had a lot of touchdowns here, hasn't really put up big yardage either. Like, a lot of his catches are the 6, 7, 8 yard variety, which, again, nothing wrong with that as well. But that's why I want to take the under on his yardage and kind of stay away from his, receptions numbers right here. Because last week he did see 7 targets, which, again, good amount of targets for a number 1 wide receiver. Caught only 4 of them for 40 yards, right? It's a little bit of a tough matchup that they have this week. You mentioned the offensive line can't stop anybody. The Giants' defensive line has been playing really well. Kayvon Thibodeau has been causing problems for teams in the backfield there. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of time for Foles to throw the ball here. I don't think they're going to have a lot of success through the air. And like I said, I question what their motivation is for this game. I mean, when you're sitting a better quarterback because you don't want him to get a bonus and throwing some other guy out there, you're basically just saying we've given up on the season. And, you've played sports before throughout your life. Like, when you know that the team isn't going out there to win and you're not,
it takes the life out of you.
Reasons. And again, at this level, especially at the NFL, like, if you're not 100% into it, and I'm not saying these guys aren't going to be playing hard, but just like that extra little motivation there is why I just think the Giants are going to crush the Colts. I don't think the Colts offense is going to solve things in 6 days on a short week, on the road, like, just so many negatives here. And that's why I like the under for Pittman at 55.5. Actually, it's 57.5, I think was the number I played it at.
Hey, go to the prop shop. Go to the prop shop. If you're going under, you got to go to the prop shop. Find the highest number to go under. We find these middles. I was watching Thursday Night Football last night, and Benny, like the 4-way teaser would have hit, regardless of which way you tease the spread or the total, you would have hit because the book was dead on it. And that happens sometimes. That's why you got to go over to the prop shop. So, Benny, you were talking about a team that in the last couple of games of the season is actually going from a better quarterback to someone else and kind of mailing it in. Well, the headline this week in the NFL is another team that did the exact same thing, and that is the Las Vegas Raiders, who are benching Derek Carr, going to Jarrett Stidham for the last couple of games because Carr had his interceptions and all that. So for me, I think this is bad news for the Raiders. So I am taking the Raiders team total under 16.5 points. And when they come out, the Josh Jacob unders in terms of yards against San Francisco. Listen, San Francisco is on an 8-game winning streak. And in those 8 games, their opponents have only gotten to 17 or 20 points like once in that time. Okay. They're holding people to single digits for the most part. The switch from Carr to Stidham makes it even worse. Jarrett Stidham is not going to be the guy who cracks the code of the 49ers defense at this point in time. And as it relates to Jacobs, the Niners defense is number 1 in the NFL. Okay. Only giving up 1,125 rushing yards so far this year. They have a 3.3 yards per carry against them. Jacobs himself, all the last month or two, have been banged up. Calf injuries, leg injuries, questionable, but he goes. Hasn't gone over 100 yards in his last 3 games. Last week, he had 15 rushing attempts. That was his lowest number since week 8, I believe. So he's kind of crawling to the finish line. The Raiders have kind of waved the white flag on this season, and the 49ers are rolling still with a bye and, kind of seeding on the line, and they are really doing it. So for me, I'm fading everything I can find in Las Vegas. And right now, that's a team total of 16.5. And that's the Josh Jacob numbers, because I don't think they'll even be in a game script where they'll be able to use him in the run. I think Amir Abdullah will be on the field in the kind of passing sets a lot of the times once we get to the second half of the game. But I wanted to ask you were talking about the Jets and the Jets quarterbacks and things of that nature. I actually think that Mr. Carr could be an interesting solution for the Jets at quarterback at 2023. Everybody talks about Jimmy Garoppolo. You could back up the Brinks truck and try to make a run at Lamar. But I actually think if that ends poorly in Vegas, which it's going to, people, it is definitely going to, I think Carr is the exact right kind of quarterback, a little bit more than a game manager. If he has a good defense, I mean, Derek Carr in Vegas, I checked, he literally has his defenses for his career have given up the most points out of any kind of veteran starter, meaning he has to pretty much put up 27 or 30 points a game to get a win. You put him with a good solid defense, a good running game. I actually think Carr could be a good fit in green or white in 2023. What say you?
I think that if we have Carr this year, we're a playoff team. Yeah. I think if my only thing here is, I mean, listen, it's an upgrade for the Jets, so I'm not going to be upset about it, but I don't think it is the way to build a dynasty. You know what I mean? I don't think taking the old quarterback, look what the Indianapolis Colts did, right? The Indianapolis Colts thought they had all the pieces in place for the last 4 or 5 years.
But those dudes were a lot older. The Ryan and the Rivers. I mean, Carr is still kind of, he has a few years left, and he's game manager plus to me, right? And you can have him for 3 or 4 years, then still bring it. Let's put it this way. I think I'd rather have Carr than Jimmy G. I'd rather have him than Jimmy G.
I think I would too. I think that Carr makes them a playoff team. I don't know if it makes them a Super Bowl contender. I think going after Lamar Jackson could make them a Super Bowl contender. Do I think they can get Lamar Jackson or somebody of that ilk without trading guys or blowing things up or getting rid of pieces that we don't really want to see them get rid of? Probably not. So if the solution that is a viable solution is Carr, I'm not going to be upset about it. But I don't necessarily think that is the thing that I will be super excited about, if that's the way to say it.
No, I think that's fair, but I think, with the team they have now, and I've been saying this to people, the Jets are above average at every position group except quarterback. And so like you just said,
offensive line, if they're healthy,
with a healthy Vera
healthy,
Tucker and
healthy offensive
and all
line
that stuff,
above average. But that's the other weakness I see. Yeah.
I would be intrigued in that kind of an upgrade. And I do think in the offseason, we will hear some stuff about it. But let's get back to week 17 here, Benny. I know you got a couple of anytime touchdown guys that you're looking at. Who do you want to tell the people about first?
Yeah, so the first one, I mean, I'm going to throw both of them out here real quick because they're both like, the thing I like is they're both at least even money or a little bit above, and I think both of them are going to drop in price. So the first one I'm going to talk about is going to be Brian Robinson of the Washington Redskins. They are a slight favorite here this week. They have a good matchup going up against Cleveland, which is a team that you can score rushing touchdowns on. People have been doing it all year long. They're in the top 5 for allowing rushing touchdowns to their opponents. So it's a good spot for Brian Robinson. And here's the other thing, and this is what I was looking at before we came on air here today. Antonio Gibson did not practice Wednesday. Antonio Gibson did not practice yesterday, and Antonio Gibson is not practicing today. Now, I didn't hear a definitive Antonio Gibson is going to be out, but let's use a little bit of intelligence here, people. Like, if the guy didn't practice Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, there's a really good chance he's not going to play. And even if he does, he's not going to get his full run. And he's also been getting less run anyway. Brian Robinson has been taking on a bigger role since coming back. His role has only grown every single game here. I think he had 20-something carries in the last game. I would not doubt if they give him 15 to 20 carries in this game, especially if there's no Antonio Gibson in there. Yeah. And again, if you're going to get even money on a guy who is a favorite against a team that gives up a lot of rushing touchdowns, that's going to be something that I like. So the first one's going to be Brian Robinson, anytime touchdown at plus 100. And the other one is going to be James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals here. The Cardinals are taking on Atlanta, so it's another really good matchup there. And the thing I like about Conner, at various points during the year, we get guys that are workhorses, right? And what I mean by workhorse, and I'm sure you know this is the guy that's going to get 80, 90% of the snaps. Yep. He's going to get 80, 90% of the carries. He's going to see some work in the passing game. And that's James Conner right now. You look at his snap logs over the last 5 weeks. I think 4 of the last 5 weeks, he's had more than 90% of the snaps at running back for Arizona.
Which is rare. Rare these days.
That's the thing is we don't have even Christian McCaffrey, who was that guy for so long, is not that guy in San Francisco. Although, he has been a little bit more with Elijah Mitchell going down and these other guys getting hurt. But there are very few guys that are just that all-the-time guy. And I love those all-the-time guys because, okay, the game's going well. Well, they're going to feed him and give him 25 carries. Okay, the game's not going well. Well, he's still going to be in there catching passes out of the backfield on their team. So this guy has multiple ways that he could score and get into the end zone. He's the short yardage guy. He could get it through the air. He could break a big run here. So there's a lot of ways that we could get it. He's going up against a good defense, and he's plus money as well. Plus 125 on BetMGM for James Conner to get into the end zone. Again, MGM is the only one that has that number up right now, Dane. So I wouldn't doubt that when some of the other books put it up, it's even lower. It's going to be lower than that. So, I like taking it and locking it in. You can get both those guys right now at least even money or above. If either one of them gets in the end zone, then you at least break even. If they both get in the end zone, which I think they will, then we're going to be making some good money this week. So James Conner, Brian Robinson, like them both to get in the end zone.
I like that one. To be honest, I love the Robinson one, okay? And let me talk about what happened yesterday, right? They ruled Pollard out. Okay, Zeke's anytime touchdown number changed by like 80 cents. Okay, so what Benny is doing is telling you to get ahead of that potential Gibson news. It doesn't matter because Robinson has become more the goal line back anyway. He's the tougher runner, right? So I like that. That one is probably going to be minus money. You could get it at plus money right now. So Benny, check it out. That makes your Brian Robinson anytime touchdown play the official Speeds Make It Rain play of the day. We are making it rain, throwing these dollar bills out there, and that's what we gotta do. I like that. Robinson getting into the end zone, absolutely. But like Benny said, do it now. Okay, Benny, you're a big fantasy guy. You know about fantasy. You got your finger on the pulse. So I bet over the last month, you know who's been tight end 1 over the last month? This is a guy who had 33 catches over the last month, 367 yards over the last month. He's got 3 touchdowns as well. He is tight end 1 over the last month. You know what I'm talking about, Benny?
I think we talk about TJ Hawkinson if we're not.
No, we're talking about a guy you saw in person, Evan Ingram of the Jacksonville Jaguars. This guy has absolutely gone off in the last month, and it's kind of correlated to really finding something with Trevor Lawrence. People have been saying Trevor Lawrence has really kind of started his ascent, as he should, as the number 1 overall pick. We see Tennessee rested everybody, because of that week 18 matchup against this Jacksonville team. Peterson came out and said he ain't resting people. He's trying to keep on building that momentum for that battle against the Titans in week 18. That'll be for the AFC South title. But I love Jacksonville this week against a bad Houston Texans team. I like the Jags team total as well, over 23.5 points. Now, Texans opponents, have scored over, 24 or more points in 6 of their last 8. I think the Jaguars are ascending, and I believe that Evan Ingram is a big piece of the reason why. Like I told you, I gave you some of the numbers he's had over the last month. He's been tight end 1. I don't think the algorithms will catch up when some of those numbers for receptions and yards come out. I would look at that. He's plus around 130 for an anytime touchdown as well. And the Texans defense is pretty bad, and they give up over 800 yards already this season to the tight end position. So I'm all on Jacksonville to kind of keep the momentum going, and I like the Evan Ingram numbers there. The other thing I'll ask you about, especially in the fantasy side as well, Evan Ingram, emerging towards the end of the year, he signed, Benny, a 1-year deal with Jacksonville in the offseason this year, kind of like a prove-it deal, and he's proving it. What kind of market do you think Evan Ingram's going to get in the offseason and like next year when you're looking at drafting tight end, right? It's always such like you got the top tier guys, right? And then there's a huge drop off. Could Evan Ingram find himself in like that second tier of tight ends along with like a Dallas Goedert, let's say, do you believe in kind of what he is showing us over the last month or so?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I would believe in it if he resigns with Jacksonville, right? Because it seems that they know what they're doing.
That's true.
They figured out how to use him. They find him here. And here's the other thing, too, is I think Evan Ingram is also one of those guys who's a better fantasy player than he is a real-life player. And that kind of sounds like a knock, and I don't mean it that way. But what I mean by that is, Evan Ingram is not a blocking tight end, right? He is not a guy that you're putting at the end of the line to be a 6th offensive lineman to really help your running game.
No, he's running routes, yeah.
When Evan Ingram is on the field, Evan Ingram is running routes. That's what he's good at. He's basically an oversized wide receiver. So as long as you know, and that's what you're using him as, and that's, again, maybe he winds up in a better spot. Maybe he winds up going to Cincinnati next year and is playing with Joe Burrow. I'd still love him in that case, Maybe he winds up going to, insert your team here that does. Maybe he winds up going to, I don't know, the Raiders or something where they don't know who the quarterback is.
More running team or something,
Yeah, or the Patriots, and that he's not going to get as many views. So really right now what I would say is if he re-signs with Jacksonville, then you think after the first like 4 or 5 tight ends off the board, right? Like think about who it was this year. It was Travis Kelce. He'll probably still be ahead of him. It was Mark Andrews. He'll probably still be ahead of him. Kyle Pitts, assuming that their quarterback play gets better, you would expect him to be ahead of him. TJ Hawkinson and Dalton Schultz. Those were the top 5. Those were the top 5.
I would struggle to name others. Right. Goddard would be someone else, but then it's right around there.
That was the row. It was Goddard. It was Zach Ertz. It was, Hawkinson. Like those were the
Kittle is in there as well. But that's what we're talking about, right?
And
5
I think
to 10, startable week in, week out.
Yeah, like to me, that means he's going to be somewhere in that round 8 to round 10 range where a lot of those other guys were last year, somewhere around like, pick 120 or pick 110, somewhere in that range. Probably where you would slot in an Evan Ingram right now, assuming he's back in the same situation.
Right, or in some kind of pass-heavy offense, where he can be leveraged and used in that way. I think that makes complete sense. So Benny gave you a couple of anytime touchdowns. We gave you some wide receivers to go over and under their props. I gave you some team totals as well. And we're even talking a little bit of fantasy looking forward. Let me tell you something, Benny. Ramondre Stevenson, I think, is going to be an RB1 next year in fantasy. And I told you, with only 50 some odd more yards, let's put it back up, with 56 more yards, he will be the first Patriots running back to get over 1,000 yards. Benny, since who? Since when? Got any ideas?
LeGarrette Blount?
Pass the Blunt is correct. LeGarrette Blunt in 2016. I think he had like 18 touchdowns that year as well for the New England Patriots. Absolutely. LeGarrette puff pass is the answer. So Benny, how does it feel? We ring in the new year on a hot streak in trivia here.
We ring it in with a blunt, the way it should be, baby.
That is, but make sure all those kids that are playing downstairs or upstairs or whatever it is, make sure that they don't know about that. You can't have them join the cipher just yet, even if
that's why we have a roof deck, baby. That's why the roof deck was made.
Go. That's what I'm talking about. All right, listen, Benny, it's been great doing these shows with you on Fridays. When we move on in the new year, we'll have week 18, we'll have wild card divisional rounds, and we'll plenty have props for those as well. But to you and yours, Happy New Year, happy holidays for my man, Benny Ricciardi. I am merely the Spittin Statistician, Dane Martinez. Come on back on Monday. Taylor Mathis and I will be breaking down Bengals and Bills' huge AFC game, supremacy on Monday Night Football. We'll be back to talk about it, and it'll be 2023. Play some of these props. Hopefully your balance will thank us as well. There you go, receiving your daily bread. It's been another episode of Daily Bets. We'll see you Monday. Peace.